The price of crude is $116.91 per barrel today. Way back on March 10th, it was $83.45 a barrel. I will tell you why that's relevant to the petrol list. Ooh, petrol, crude, petrol, right? Anyway, I'll tell you why that's relevant to not just the name of the podcast that you're watching, but also the Formula One news. But first, I got to tell you a little bit about why this is a Tuesday video and not a Monday video. Have you ever started something, an endeavor, and you're like, man, this won't take very long. This will be great. Bam, I'll have it done. Only to find out that there are more steps and process and stuff that you need to walk through. Well, that's happened to me. Not with motorsports or racing and stuff, but my primary job. And maybe I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. But the active ingredient here is that it's been exceedingly difficult for me to get the videos out on Monday. So if you're subscribed and you're watching, I thank you, because the delay has cost me a couple of subscribers. So if you are subscribed and you're watching, I thank you for hanging in there. And if you're watching and you're not subscribed, please do consider subscribing, because it would be cool to get to 400. I'm at 395 if somebody hasn't unsubscribed in the time that I've been talking right here. Anyway, I just had to put that out there. Let's get into it. So I mentioned the price of oil. The price of crude oil has gone up, and you would think that would mean, oh, great news for electric vehicles. Well, no. You need crude oil and fossil fuels and whatnot to make cheap electricity. You see, they're intertwined. And so when there is a crisis with oil, there is a crisis with electricity. And as we all know, electricity is a big part of the Formula One game this season. Let me talk first about electric vehicles really quick. So there's some takeaways from a recent report about electric vehicles, and there is a certainty gap, aka market volatility. And the most immediate impact has been a $650 million loss in market capitalization across the EV sector. So I'm talking Tesla, Volkswagen Auto Group, General Motors, anybody who has been in the EV game. There's been a huge slash into the market capitalization. Long story short, they're losing money. And that is because the more expensive that oil gets, the more expensive electricity gets. And also there are the performance issues. Took a road trip with my wife just this past Easter weekend. He's risen. Road trip with my wife, and we filled up my Bronco really quick, got back on the road, and we looked over and saw a whole bunch of electric vehicles just, sitting there. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, my gosh, these cars are going to be here charging for a while. And I was thinking my lucky stars that I was able to just fill up with some, run-of-the-mill cheap gas, because I got that kind of engine. I didn't get the big old powerful one. I got the four-banger. So I filled up with some 87, and bam, we're on our way back to, on the highway to where we're trying to go. I was like, my gosh, that's got to be so inconvenient. You could see entire families just sitting there waiting for the thing to charge. I don't know how fast they charge. Maybe they're only waiting for 15 minutes. Maybe they're waiting for 2 hours. Who knows? I don't know. And I can't say it's necessarily my concern. But there they were, and I'm glad that I wasn't one of them. But there's the resurgence of the internal combustion engine. There's a pivot. Instead of the planned all-in transition to EV only lineups by 2030, manufacturers are shifting R&D budgets back to optimizing internal combustion efficiency and hybrid availability. You can already see it. There's a really cool, I want to say it's the Hyundai Boulder that they just released a concept for. It looks just like a Bronco. And you know what? I don't care. I like it. I like competition. I wish that Chevy would have made a decent looking and off-road capable Blazer versus the one that they put out. So, hey, if Chevy isn't going to do it, then I'm glad Hyundai is. But guess what? It's going to be a hybrid. Same thing with the Toyota Land Cruiser. I think the models that they have, that's a hybrid as well. I think Lexus is the only version of that SUV that has gas only, which is a shame because I think that a Land Cruiser that was all gas would actually be amazing, but that's not what they decided to do. But at least there's competition. I like competition, and that goes along with the thing that I said about manufacturers moving back to the efficiency of internal combustion engines and the availability of the hybrids. And then there's, of course, the geopolitical realignment of the supply chain. So if you don't know where your crude is coming from and you can't predict it, then the cost of energy production becomes a whole lot more unreliable. So you need to go back to basics, making vehicles that are cheap to make, because remember, the carbon footprint of an electric vehicle production to produce it is a lot higher than that of a gas vehicle. So if you want to save money, what do? You create a gas engine that doesn't take a lot of gas to run, and you avoid that upfront cost of very carbon heavy initial production. Sorry, I know that's a lot of information. How does that tie into Formula One? For that, I'm going to go to an article where Martin Brundle was talking about some of the problems that Formula One is having. And one is the the clipping crisis. And the clipping crisis is what caused the 50G collision that Ollie Bearman suffered in Suzuka. That has to do with the closing speed. So the danger. When a car suddenly drops, when a car suddenly drops 300 horsepower, while the car behind is still at full throttle, the closing speeds become astronomical. Brundle argues that the current 50-50 split between internal combustion and electric power make this transition too violent and too unpredictable, creating a significant safety risk during wheel-to-wheel racing. Basically, the car speeds up and slows down using 50% of the horsepower. In a 150 horsepower vehicle, a Miata, that is definitely enough to cause you to go off the track. It's definitely enough to cause you problems at the track. Now, imagine this happens on a 1,000 horsepower vehicle where you lose almost 50% or you gain almost 50% of the power. And those vehicles do like 200 miles an hour, and the drivers are pushing those vehicles to the edge of grip, meaning any change to the calculus and the mathematics that are going on in the driver's head, if that changes, that driver goes off. Ollie Bearman, Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen. And you know what that is a part of? That is a failure of the 50-50 power split. So say you were 80% ICE, 20% EV, and you lose 50% of 20%. That is 10%. You're doing a 10% change. So you're not as concerned with super clipping, and you're not as concerned with losing grip or changing the dynamics of the vehicle. When it's 50-50, that change is catastrophic, and we've seen it time and time again. So Brundle is calling on the FIA to intervene immediately. Personally, not only do I feel like the whole battery thing is causing F1 to have a legitimacy problem, like what is it that we're watching? What are we watching? It's causing them to have a drivability problem. Now, how does that tie in to what I was talking about with the $65 billion market loss? Well, guess what? The timing for this, it kind of coincides. Mercedes, Audi, GM, were all very excited about getting in, Mercedes is already in, but they were all very excited about this 50-50 EV to ICE thing in the regulations. Because like I said in a previous video, Formula One is often a time for major manufacturers. It's often a space for major manufacturers to do research in the name of racing. And you kind of get to have Formula One pay for that R&D, because that R&D ain't cheap, or at least to offset. Well, in a world where the marketplace is rejecting electric vehicles, all of a sudden the incentive for manufacturers to get in is not as great. But remember, it takes a lot for a manufacturer to get into Formula One. We're talking $250 million, $500 million to get in, and those are just entry fees. So you got to stay in Formula One for a little while before you start getting your money back. If you get out now, it's just a loss. So if the market is having trouble with EVs and Formula One is having trouble with EVs, then the only thing that the FIA and the manufacturers who just joined Formula One can do is start to kind of reverse course on the level of electric propulsion in the race cars. Now, in theory, you can't really change anything mid-season because that wouldn't be fair to the teams. There's already so much R&D and the schedule is too hectic. But wait, there are no races due to global events. That's why I'm not talking about a race right now, because there is not one. So what do you have time to do in the meantime? Fix the rules, tell the teams, and hope that something is resolved by the time we get around to Miami. So I am going to be keeping my mind on that as we move forward, and my Monday videos, because I will get back to Monday videos, will reflect what I'm learning about the automotive industry and what I'm learning about Formula One and its regulations and mitigation of the huge super clipping safety risks. So expect that. And then, I'll try to give you more updates on the project that I'm working on the side and why it's preventing me from being able to do my Monday videos. But the Monday videos will be back. I just gotta finish up some stuff that I'm working on. The Monday videos will be back. Anyway, sorry, phone's ringing. I'll have to take this call after I wrap up here. We are in flux, not just in the automotive market, but in the FIA regulations, and I'm sure that there will be more to come in that news, but that is what's going on. All right, this has been the Petrol List. I've been Dalton. You have been great. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week. I'm out.